Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Nets program. We talk to reporters, writers, editors, all different people. And in our second segment today, we're going to get into a little music segment that's going to be very interesting to you. But let's start out and say good evening to Liya Cui, who is with the Mott Haven Herald and Hunts Point Express. Nice to see you, Liya. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you
Good.
for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Of course, both the Mott Haven Herald and the almost said Long Island Express. No, it's the Hunts Point Express. Are papers that come out of college and graduate school institutions. So tell me a little bit about your work. You are a Craig Newmark School student?
Yes, I'm a first semester student at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY. So yeah, I take this class called Craft, where everyone in class writes for these two news sites that focus on the South Bronx, Mott Haven Herald, and Hunts Point Express.
And what is it that drove you? You from New York at this, or you came to New York to do this?
I've lived in New York for about 7 years now. I came here for undergrad. And I've done a little journalism in undergrad and after that, but I started my career as a copywriter decided to pivot back to something I was more passionate about. But I felt I needed some guidance to get me there. So that's why.
I'm just out of curiosity, undergraduate here in the city somewhere?
Yes, at the New School.
At the New School. Great. So what, like you say, something that means something, what motivates you to do journalism? This is not easy. It's not as maybe lucrative, and there may not be as many jobs as there are in nursing or healthcare or something like that. But what is it? And believe me, I understand. What is it? What's the passion that drives you there?
I just love stories and I love storytelling, and I'm not a very good fiction writer. I'm not good at making things up. And I'm just interested in seeing like what's happening, especially at really specific stories. The more specific, I think, the better. I think it's interesting to see just what's happening in the world, and to share that with other people.
Well, one of the things that I am learning from doing this program, many of the young journalists like yourself really appreciate the detail. And I suppose when I was learning journalism and all that, it wasn't quite like that. But a lot of the young journalists, they really write stuff in such detail. What about covering the borough of the Bronx? This must have been a something of real joy for you, because this is a very interesting place, to say the least.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I didn't know anything about the South Bronx before this class. And something that our professors told us, the mission of these two news sites was that when other New York City papers would write about the Bronx, all they wrote about was crime. And so the mission of the Mott Haven Herald and Hunts Point Express is to paint a fuller picture of the South Bronx, and really focus on what the community wants and what they want to read about. And so I like that we're serving.
It's really like I've been doing this for a very long time. It's really like undiscovered territory. We have all this stuff. We have 1.5 million people, and nobody knows we're here. It's crazy, but it gives great fodder for a young journalist, for any journalist, and again, I know that as well as anybody. So let's just segue right in. I thought this was really interesting. I mean, I know the people involved. I know Majora and James, who are involved in Bronxlandia. I was not aware that this became like Kafkaesque. It kept growing, that they simply wanted to open a nice place, nice venue in the Bronx, in the South Bronx, but they ran into a lot of issues. Why don't you recap it for us and talk about your story? The Bronxlandia event venue is one step closer to a liquor license. That seems to be the sticking point.
Well, they have their license now, but I'll start from the beginning.
That was when you wrote the article. That's right.
Yes. So to recap, the Bronxlandia is this performance and events venue in Hunts Point that opened in late 2021. It's the largest venue of its kind in the area. It can hold like 300 people. And it's owned by Majora Carter and James Chase. They're a married couple and business partners. And Majora is well known in the neighborhood for her work in the community and environmental justice, and
Yeah, sure. She's been around a long time.
totally. And what she's doing with Bronxlandia, and they also have another business, the Boogie Down Grind, which is a cafe bar nearby. The point is to revitalize the neighborhood and create more spaces, more public spaces for the community to meet and have like arts and cultural events.
Sure. What could be more important in a community like an underserved community like the South Bronx,
Yeah.
to have an artist venue like that? What's the problem?
The problem
I mean, I'm checking all the boxes going, yeah, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. Why did it become so controversial?
Well, the controversy is just surrounding its liquor license. So James Chase went to start that process last spring. And so to get a liquor license in New York, you first have to notify your local community board.
Right.
And at that point, they can either approve or disapprove, but their opinion is only advisory. So the New York State Liquor Authority makes the final decision and actually grants the liquor license. But they will take what the community board has to say into account. So James Chase went to Community Board 2,
Right.
which covers Hunts Point, and they said, we approve, but we have stipulations. And they all had to do with like security and operating measures for Bronxlandia events. They wanted things like more cameras, walk through metal detectors. They wanted to be notified 30 days before they had any event. They wanted them to close at midnight. It was things like that. So,
before you move on,
yes.
So I'm just hearing that and saying, well, it sounds reasonable the way the world is right now. Certainly, if you have music events, it sometimes attracts people who are a little crazier than less crazy, and so that sounds reasonable. Okay, what's the problem?
Well, James verbally agreed at that point, but then they came back and said, actually, these are too restrictive. For example, the closing at midnight, under state liquor authority rules, any business with a liquor license can actually close at 4 a.m. So that 12 a.m. was a lot more restrictive than normally it would be.
Yeah, I could see how that could be a problem.
Yeah.
For a venue of that sort, sure. Especially in the Bronx, I mean, people are going to come out. They don't start until 10 or 11 o'clock some Saturday nights for sure.
Totally. And so they came back and said these are too restrictive. Also, the community board said we want Majora to show up in person to talk to us before we can go.
Because her name was on the documents. And all
she
that
was
stuff.
more
That's
like
right.
official owner of Bronx.
So let's move it forward. How did it turn out, and where are we at now?
To summarize, this ensued like about a year and a half of back and forth between the community board and Bronxlandia.
Liya, welcome to the Bronx.
Yeah, because and what is interesting about this is that it got pretty contentious. It got like emotional at times, or James and Majora are saying that some members of the community board were being abusive or unprofessional.
I get it. Yep.
Yeah, and that
again, those of us who've been covering this stuff for a long time, we know the personalities involved, and we know the tensions involved. So, has it been resolved, or did they get the liquor license? Are they moving forward, or are we still in this debate stage?
Yeah. So Bronxlandia actually did get their liquor license back in June, but there was an issue because the state liquor authority approved it on like a staff level, where it's like a conditional license. Right. And then the liquor authority is supposed to have a full board meeting where the community board can come and air any opposition that they have. And the liquor authority had some kind of clerical error and did not notify community board 2. So then they found out and complained, and then they revoked the license a month later.
So now we're still in somewhat of even though they have a license, but there's somewhat of a negotiation still going on.
It was a pending license.
Yeah, just taking a step back, imagine an underserved community like the Bronx, and here's an opportunity to have it. And I'm not taking sides of who's right or who's not right, but I'm just saying, imagine having this and wanting to do something good and here we are, years not being able to do it. Maybe one day I'll bring Majora and James on the program and talk to them about it. Before we run out of time, you were also wrote about car thefts, and I thought this was interesting because I'm working on it. You connected it to TikTok.
Yeah. So
explain this. What is this?
Over the past year, there's been a rise in car thefts in the Bronx, but also across the city, actually across the country. But in the past year, it's been the worst in Queens, and then the Bronx is second worst.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that increase can be attributed to this TikTok challenge that went viral last year. It's called the Kia Challenge. It was basically, it shows you that certain Kia and Hyundai car models are really easy to break into.
Wow. So TikTok opened the door and said, here's how you do it.
Basically, yeah. And because it's TikTok, a lot of these car thefts have been committed by people. I think about half of them have been committed by people under 21, maybe about like 40%.
Right, because they've been watching it. And then I guess the advice to the general public, don't buy a Kia or a Honda because you're in. Wow. And so is this being addressed in some form? I mean, listen, it's the same thing as the ghost guns and all the instructions how to build a gun. I mean, it's all the wrong sort of use for media. And so is there any legal enforcement able to get in the middle of this?
Yes. So back in September, Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams, they both announced these big comprehensive plans to crack down on the car thefts, which involves more funding for the NYPD to send out more patrol cars to stop them from happening. Also, like raising more public awareness. The NYPD has been holding these events where they can give to people free Apple AirTags to put in their cars in case they do get stolen.
So they do get stolen, then they can be traced. Listen, we're almost out of time, but I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's Liya Cui, who is a reporter for the Mount Haven Herald and the Hunts Point Express. We need you in the Bronx. You are the kind of people we want. Can I ask you, once you're finished with your schooling, going to stick around? We'd love to have you.
Oh, totally.
Going.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I'm excited to hear that. All right. Listen, thank you, Liya. We appreciate your time. And keep reporting on our borough. As I said, we need people like you, and we appreciate your time this evening. Let's take a short break, folks. When we come back, we're going up to the Northwest Bronx, and we're going to talk about a music venues. We're going to talk about a music venue that does something very unique and special. We'll be right back.
So much.
Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Man, it's lonely. Like, going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about all our segments, but I'm particularly excited about this because this is music in a local cafe, and that's where we want to have Bronx music. And so let's say good evening to Suzanne and Richard Hockstein, who are part of Seeing Voices. Nice to see you guys. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Tell me how we got the name Seeing Voices. This is some kind of a play on words in a way.
Actually, it's a deaf culture term. I
had no idea.
Yeah, I was studying to become a sign language interpreter, and
An
I accidentally
ASL
became
person.
Yes, I accidentally became a nursery school teacher. But seeing voices is akin to someone who has lost a limb, who has a phantom feeling in that limb when it's no longer there. Seeing voices is someone who was deafened postlingually after they could hear when they were born. So as they're reading your lips, they have a voice running in their head.
Wow.
And that's called seeing voices. Yeah.
Fascinating. And how long
Yeah,
has
isn't that cool?
That's why I asked. How long has the band been together?
Well, since I always say well before the turn of the century.
Yeah.
So.
Which used to sound like a long time ago, but well, it is kind of more than
It's still,
23
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And so let's see. So Suzanne, you are the vocalist, and
I am.
Richard, you play lead guitar.
Right, yeah.
Let's mention the names. We're going to show you a clip, folks, so you'll see who they are. But to just mention the names of the other members of the band.
Steve Giordano is our bass player, and
Right.
our drummer is
Joe Guzzardo.
Joe Guzzardo. Yes.
Okay, there you go. So you're the four of you, and
Yep.
how often do you play? You play it on Beal Bach, which is what we're going to talk about.
We do.
But do you play other places? Do you play often? Just talk a little bit about what you do.
We hit the Bach about every 6 weeks because it's really
The
our
Bach.
home base.
I like that.
The Bach.
Bach.
Yes,
Mhm.
the Bach. Those on the inside call it the Bach.
Mhm.
Yes, but we play there about every 6 weeks. And
Right.
we haven't played a whole lot of other places of late since the pandemic,
Right.
but we're pretty consistently playing out just about every month.
And you practice, the four of you practice every day? I guess it's easier for the two of you to get together.
Yes.
And practice.
Well, especially now that we're into the cover collective, we are doing a lot more playing at home than we used to.
Right. Suzanne just did the proper introduction for what we really came to talk about, because I ran into her at a gig, and she told me about this notion of the cover collective. What is the cover collective, and how did we get there?
The cover collective was the brainchild of Taylor Rich, who started it, I believe, 9 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And she did it mostly in the Bronx, but she had a few issues of it down in the Village, maybe even in Brooklyn.
Right, she did some Brooklyn shows and stuff like that.
And it's a monthly gig, and it's thematic, meaning I pick the theme. Well, like Taylor started it, she pick a theme, and we would all, scurry around and pick songs on that theme, and keep track so that there's no repeats. And then
Explain, wait 1 second. Explain to me. So you pick a theme, and the theme is like what?
This month is every Tom, Dick, and Harry. So that means you can bring in songs by anybody written by any of those names, anybody performing a song that's got that name, and then I will consider laterals like
The names in it.
the names in it. That's not a lateral. That's a solid one.
Right, yeah.
But like I've had themes like architecture and colors and
Numbers.
numbers
names.
and
Colors I could do. Architecture would encompass like city. I mean, I'm still working on the Tom, Dick, and Harry. I'm sure
Yeah.
Harry Nilsson, or is somebody going to play Harry
Absolutely.
Nilsson? And so then what happens? Then different performers come up and play?
Yes, we have a chorale of about 17 performers at this point.
Wow.
And it's really grown. It started with about six or eight people. And this is a good Monday night. I mean, what else can you do on a Monday night? It's a
Nothing.
fabulous deal.
You couldn't do anything that's better than this. It's just a fascinating concept. Now, when they perform, do they set up? I mean, you can't have 17 people setting up their own band, or is it individuals?
That's the thing, is that it started with mostly just one person and a guitar, or two people with their guitars. And then there were a lot of singers that didn't play. And so we sort of accidentally became the house band for anybody that didn't play. Because
I see.
Richard, is a very, very good guitar player, and he's learning about 15 to 20 songs a month now for people.
Wow.
And I am, I'll keep it clean on your show, but I am a harmony harlot and will sing harmony for anyone, anywhere.
I shudder to think what you might have said.
Yeah.
But so Richard is actually the Paul Schaefer of the group.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Right. Though basically, there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of overlap going on these days.
Did anybody ever stump you? Did anybody ever say we wrote this song and you couldn't figure it out?
On occasion. I'm not real good. I can't say I'm really like a real jazz guitar player. I can sort of fake my way through a lot of it, but some of the stuff is a little too abstract for me. But most everything else, I can do show tunes.
It's been a great learning experience.
It just sounds fantastic, mostly because you go see a band or you go see some music. You generally know what you're going to see. Here, it's like kind of a work of art. It's being created all the time.
And it's also really an interesting insight into people's repertoires. Like there are certain members of the cover collective that seem committed to finding the most obscure song that fits the theme that no one has ever heard. And then there are those members that want to do the big ticket songs that they know the whole bar is going to sing. So we have like that back and forth the whole evening. And we have a lot of crossover. Like we have one violin player that's like doing 6 or 8 different songs this month. We got a horn player that plays on. We got harp players. It's really a collaborative.
Some bass players, some other guitar players.
But it's not a whole.
So there's a lot of collaboration going on.
But it's not like a whole band for every song.
Right, but
a few of them.
People do come and attend and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, we have an actual coven. We have the Cover Collective Coven, a group of witchy women that come just about every time and cast the good spells.
Wow,
for us. This is no joke here.
Yeah, and clearly, well, that's why we put you on TV. So this is at Anbielbach Cafe, which is on West 238th Street, just depending which direction you're coming. It's either up the steps or down the hill on West 238th Street. It's a wonderful place. I mean, I've been there many, many times. And you do it once a month.
Once a month, the first Monday of the month, unless it's a holiday.
Okay,
you can always check the Bach website to double check the date.
I love how you call it the Bach. It is Anbielbach Cafe for those of us who really want to get the whole thing. And so the next one is December 4th. And what time does it begin?
The next one is actually
December 4th. Yeah, December 4th.
No, we're doing the one in November.
We're doing one in November.
But as we talked about, this is being
December 4th,
recorded beforehand.
Sorry.
We're recording it early.
I'm not TV. Yes, December 4th. And I don't have a theme yet. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because I never announced the theme before the night of the performance.
What time does it get started?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 to midnight.
You come in, you can have a bite to eat. You certainly can have a couple of drinks, and you can just relax and enjoy music and be creative with
on
Bronx
a
people.
Monday
How
night.
exciting. Now, listen, I wanted to show Seeing Voices. As you guys know, I saw you perform outdoors recently, and it was just an absolute joy. And
thanks to KRVC.
For putting what was really a wonderful art show together.
It was.
But I just wanted to show Anbielbach Cafe, which is cozy and fine, and give Seeing Voices a chance to rock the house a little bit. So Anderson can play the magic box. I sound like Mr. Rogers. If we can get the magic box going, let's take a look at Seeing Voices.
When the truth is found to be
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, seeing voices. And Suzanne, we talked about this, and I deliberately picked. You gave us a couple of videos to choose from, but I deliberately picked that one because you talked about your affinity for Grace Slick. Just talk to me about not only that, but your own musical roots and how you went from, doing ASL to being a nursery school teacher to being an enthusiastic singer.
Well, we have to go back further than that. I mean, Richard and I met on the largest commune in the United States at the time in 1976.
Wow, where was that? Where was that?
That was the farm in Tennessee.
Okay.
Stephen Gaskin's farm, yeah. And we met there, and I saw him playing guitar on stage. I was like, oh my God, who is that?
I love this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I had already noticed him. And, I was
And had you been a singer beforehand?
I have always been a singer. I've been a singer since second grade. I started in school and church and was pretty much pulled out to start doing solos when I was in like second grade.
And
So,
I don't want to over harp on it, but Grace Slick was an influence. I'm assuming so many
oh,
other
absolutely.
great
I
singers
was even
were.
told back then when I was 16 that I sounded like Grace Slick. So I didn't hate that.
Well, no, there's worse.
There's worse.
Richard, for you playing the guitar, we don't have much time left, but just for you playing the guitar, when did you start?
Oh, I started playing guitar when I was about 15 or so, and I was, I'm basically, a blues rock guy at heart. I will say that, when we met Suzanne at the time, we just started going out, and she wasn't singing with us at the time, but her and her friends would come to our shows, and all the girlfriends would come after the show. They'd say, "You have to let Susie sing. Susie has such a
There
great
you go.
voice, And
now you can't get her. And now
finally
you
we said, "Well, okay."
and
And then
that's
after
it.
that, it was like, "Okay, yeah."
And now
Yeah.
you can't
Now-
get rid of her. Yeah.
47 years later, yeah, he can't
God
get rid of
bless.
me.
Anyway, so we're just going to remind people on December 4th at 8 p.m. at Anbielbach Cafe, the Cover Collective. It's different from any and everything you have seen and heard.
It's true.
And we appreciate both Suzanne and Richard Hockstein for joining us this evening. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you,
Well,
Gary.
thank you, yeah.
No problem. All right, that will do it for us on the Bronx Buzz. It's always a pleasure to be with you. It's great to be promoting great music like that, local music, which is really where it's at. So, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, I'll see you next week. Good night.